So I saw 28 Years Later around the 21st, like the day after it came out, and I've been thinking about the same things every single day since that movie came out. I really need to go see it again, but I don't have a lot of money right now, so I'm trying to save, and I'll probably go see it again sometime soon, but it's going to be a little while until I get paid again. And oh man, what I've been thinking about is like I said, the exact same stuff over and over, which is that this is an amazing movie, and I don't get how people don't like it. Most people tend to like this movie. I've seen very few takes of people saying this is like the worst movie ever made. A lot of people think it's a mess and that it has problems, which is totally fair. I don't really get them. I don't. Even that I don't get. It's one of the first times I've ever liked a movie this much in contrast to other people, and I just don't understand how they can feel the way that they do. I really don't get it. I just don't. It's okay. The opinions I've seen, specifically to talk about those first, for some context, is that a lot of people I've seen have called it an unnecessary sequel, nothing like the original films. I've seen people say it was a mess, that the pacing was bad, that it wasn't scary, all those kind of things. I've seen a lot of that stuff, and I still I don't get it. The only thing I can get is some people's opinions on the ending, because the ending is very jarring. Even though I love the ending, I do think it can be very jarring to most people. It was jarring to me in the theater, but I think that's the point. It's obviously spoilers for the whole thing going forward. Bleh. Yeah, things in my throat. Not zombies though, which God, all the zombies in this movie were very naked. That was not something I expected. I expected them to at least have torn clothes, not. Anyway, back to the main point of this. So the biggest comparison that I think about the most is people saying that it's nothing like the original two. One, I don't think that's a bad thing. And two, I don't think it is that different. I think it is quite different in some ways, especially for the fact that they have the slow, low zombies, the ones that are, slow as compared to 28 years main gimmick, which is that the zombies are very fast. But most of the differences aren't truly that different. I mean, 28 years and weeks actually has a lot in common. Same for days. Um, I mean, like, if you have to go through like really weirdly specific things, I think I saw someone. No, I don't know if I saw someone say this or not, but I'm pretty sure I've seen people complain about the fact that Aaron Taylor Johnson, who plays Jamie, the dad, isn't in the movie that much. And yeah, that's true. Did you watch 28 Weeks Later? Where the main character we spend most of our time with just becomes a zombie halfway through, and then you don't really see him except three other times the rest of the film? That does happen in 28 Weeks Later, although 28 Weeks is kind of the odd one of the bunch of the series. It's by far the weakest one. I love it, but I think it's a bad movie. I think objectively it's bad, especially when you compare it to something like 28 Days, which I think shares so many good qualities with 28 years. 28 years and days feels like they wanted to make a horror movie that was sentimental. Days is one of the most sentimental, calming films I've ever seen in my life, which is saying something, because that movie is just about zombies running around. um, I really love the peaceful scenes of Frank and Jim and Selena and Hannah wandering the British highways and supermarkets and cities and all that kind of thing. Obviously, in the beginning of the film, Jim is alone, and I think that really gets at the core of what 28 Days is. It's a film about the filmmakers have described it as a film analyzing societal rage, and I think what that film shows an antithesis for is coming together and making each other's lives better. by being together instead of angry at each other and stuff like that. That's not quite what the film is truly about, but I think that gets at the core that the film is about humanity. And obviously, all zombie movies are about humanity, overcoming the undead and all that sort of thing. But I think what I love about Days is that, Jim starts out alone, scared, and he has nightmares and panic about being left scared and alone again. And the film is about how, he finally finds a family. He becomes, he essentially creates the family that he needs to be with after losing his own and being left alone. And it's really, it's sort of a coming of age of a different kind of breed, especially when Jim is like, what, 30? You don't usually have a coming of age at that age, but you can have a coming of age, which is what 28 years does as well. And it's a very good point. A very good thing that the movie does is that it's just a coming of age story. I really don't. It's why I don't get why people think the pacing is that bad. It's very clear that at the beginning, Spike and his dad Jamie are going on like a coming of age ritual for Spike, and Spike becomes disillusioned by it just because their experience is quite honestly fucking horrible. Then when they get back to the island, uh, Spike sees his dad cheating on his mom, and his dad doesn't seem to want to help his mom get to the only doctor they know exists in the UK now. Like, literally, the only one they've found, it happens to be a stone's throw away, but they won't go towards him, although they have very justifiable reasoning for not going towards him. And Spike does something that many would see selfish and risk the safety of the village to go save his mom and bring her with him. And I really, and it's a coming of age about losing his mother and remembering that there are many kinds of death and family in the world. And I think what 28 Years, the trilogy, because they're planning on doing a part 2, which has already been filmed and coming out in about January. Although we don't have a trailer yet, so I'm wondering if they'll push that back a little bit. And then obviously a part 3 if the first 2 do well, which I'm really... Part 1's done well, so I'm really hoping part 2 does well. But, I think what this trilogy is going to show is that there are family that you have to choose your is that you can choose your family. I think, because the ending of part 1 has him meeting the Jimmy Seville, I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name, the Jimmy Gang. Very clearly awful, evil people. Their design is quite literally based off of a known pedophile. Obviously, their design is based on, in their universe, they wouldn't know that guy's a pedophile. But in our universe, we know that guy is a pedophile. Yeah. I really am so curious to see where they're going to go with that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a coming of age, and I think it's so similar to 28 Days and Years in that regard, although there is quite a lot of differences. For one, 28 Days shows more of wide open areas where like people have actually been. You see like actual society, while 28 Years primarily is focused on like woodland areas. The only places and buildings we see are secluded, overrun areas. We don't really see in like inner city or small towns or villages or anything like that. We just got the main island village. That's where the movie's set. But I think that's fine. I definitely love seeing gigantic, wide open, empty cities like in the original 28. That's a big reason why that movie did so well, is just because of those amazing shots in the streets of London where there's just no one. Those are incredible. But I don't know. I really think 28 Days and 28 Years are very similar films, but they 28 Years acknowledges the passage of time because time is itself a character in this series. The amount of days after the outbreak is a character. The amount of weeks in 28 weeks is a character. The amount of years in 28 years is also a character. You see that with the mom thinking back to the past when her dad was still alive, and they would come look at this like one billboard or whatever, wherever they were in that like field, because she's having a hallucination. But oh god, I lost my train of thought. Okay, point is that years is a character in this series, and I think when time is a factor, which it is in any story, because time is something that affects every single human being, fictional or otherwise, you have to take into account things like the passage of time, and with that, things change. The way the film was felt so connected to the original despite not having any characters, and I just I don't know how to explain it. The difference between the two is great. I think differences in sequels is needed. I love sequels that are pretty similar, but differences matter. I'm reminded. I was immediately reminded when I saw people's negative takes on it, saying it was different, to something like Twin Peaks season 3. Um, so first of all, Twin Peaks is a very different thing than 28, but far more niche, far more weird, far more surreal. Although 28 Days is a fairly surreal movie in some elements. Um, but Twin Peaks season 3, like 25 years after the last season of Twin Peaks, and they had to acknowledge that by having all the characters do different things, act, like themselves but very differently. And I think that's what 28 years does great, is that everything acts in a way like it used to, but something is changed, and that's all for the better. The camera work, excellent. It's like the first movie. I didn't really like the camera work in 28 Weeks. I like some of it. Again, I love 28 Weeks as a fun movie, but I think it really is just a bad movie that gets worse and worse each time you watch it. Um, I can like something and still consider it bad. I mean, I like some Taylor Swift songs. I don't really like her as a person or as an artist. But yeah. Um, but with Twin Peaks season 3, things are so different, and you have to acknowledge how long it's been, and you have to write that into the story, and you have to do things with that. And that's the same thing that 28 Years does. I really love 28 Years and its take on sentimentality in relation to how the first movie does it. I mean, every zombie film does that thing where it's like humanity is what we're going to analyze today. But I just love how 28 does it. It's so loving and sweet to our best aspects of humanity while taking a dark look at our worst. Um, yeah, like the Swedish guy Erickson and how he fucking sucks as a person. No, he's a funny character. I've had a friend who I recommended the movie to, and and they watched it, and they were a really big fan of it, and they're gonna watch 28 Days Later because of it. But um, they hated Erickson, and were glad he died, and I'm glad he died too. Even though I kind of liked his presence in the movie, he was funny, and I actually thought his comedy fit, although it was like a sudden barrage of comedy all at once. Because there was like a couple jokes in the film beforehand, maybe like one. I can't remember any, but I know there was at least one or two. And oh my god, he just, every single line of his is a joke until the scene where he's about to shoot the baby that came from the infected woman, and he's just like, "I'm gonna shoot you," and then he dies. It's great. um, yeah. So 28, if I had to rank the trilogy, I feel like it's kind of obvious, although it's not going to be a trilogy for very long. It's going to be a, what the hell do you call a centilogy? Sure, the centilogy. It would be, I'm not really sure where 28 Years and Days ranks. I think I need to rewatch 28 Years before I form that real opinion. But when I first watched 28 Years, I loved it and I was like, this is the best one. This is the best one. And then I messaged someone and they were like, please don't tell me that. I haven't seen the movie and I don't want too high expectations. And then I sent them a message saying it was the worst movie I've ever seen, because it is. It's okay. It's a good movie. It's a really good movie. I loved this movie. Um, I would say it's probably my favorite of the series, but I just can't confirm that right now. 28 Days, also amazing. Um, I really don't know. Maybe tie for now, and then Weeks. Um, and then hopefully years 2 and years 3 just make me like them more and more. I am still hesitant to enjoy the fact that this was a planned trilogy, because I don't really think anything should be that. At least from the get go, I think things should be self contained, and then there can be a future for it with some nods to that in the original property. I just don't really like it when things are planned that far, because I like the idea of self contained stories that don't require hours and hours of time to be invested in. I just like stories and I like to experience them. I don't, and because it feels very corporate when you're like, 28 Years is returning with a trilogy. That just sounds so corporate, and I don't anymore feel that, because it seems like it worked out with 28 Years Later Part 1. Love this movie. Absolutely love this movie. I'm really hoping that the film coming out in January, hopefully, fingers crossed, lives up to what I've been hoping for. Which, I mean, I know Cillian Murphy's going to be in that one. I don't really care to see Jim. It'll be cool to see some through line from the past films. Obviously, we have the rage virus being infected in the UK again because of 28 Weeks. Although I'm very curious how the Islanders work in to 28 Weeks, because I'm just wondering, because we do get confirmation that 28 Days takes place in 2002. Makes sense. Because it says that's when their little island town was established, or maybe it says 2003. I can't quite remember. But like, so were they just on the island during 28 Weeks? They didn't join the NATO forces? I mean, that would make sense, but at the same time, wouldn't the NATO forces have been like, hey, y'all, we can help you now? Are they people from the 15,000 that were brought back in as refugees in 28 Weeks? Maybe like, I don't know. I don't know if that's how that works or not. I truthfully don't know. But I love 28 Years. I love 28 Days. I love Weeks, kind of. My favorite part of Weeks is when Jeremy Renner dies. I don't have anything against his character, because his character was awesome. His actor, he's a good actor. I don't like Jeremy Renner. I don't know anything about Jeremy Renner as a person. I just don't like him for no reason. So that's why you should watch 28 Weeks Later. It's because Jeremy Renner burns to death in it. And thank you for listening to my thoughts on 28 Years Later.